Hello friends, welcome back to another Value Vintage Cards video. So, in a recent VR that was put out there to celebrate Darren's 1,000 subscribers, he asked us to not only shout out some channels, which I named 5 of the many that could be, but also he said pick a card that is a goal card. Something that's on the list that you think is attainable. I always think of that as being like maybe a 12-month goal, because what's on my list is not like a 57 tops Whitey Ford. It's something that's probably a little bit tougher to track down. So one of the very top, probably the second highest collected card player in my collection is that guy, Stan Musial. So I like finding things like that. That's a 51 Wheaties. Not a whole lot of those out there. That one's cut really neat. That's got a little bit more on it than what a lot of them would have. So I was really happy to find that copy to add to my collection. So it just has some fingerprints on it. And things like that. You find those kind of cool looking slash rare versions of cards. So his Venezuelan from 67, the Retirado, so he had fairly recently retired at that point. So those are always kind of neat to find those cards like that, but you can't necessarily put that on the shopping list and say, I'm going to go grab one this week, because there's quite often when you go looking for cards like that, there might be one, there might be none. Rarely is there 2 available. So depending what kind of criteria you're looking for, you may or may not even have the choice to make that acquisition. And when he asked what we were looking for, hunting for, I showed a whole bunch of these. Not to be obnoxious, but I was actually showing cards I did have. So that's card number 1. This is the 55 Rawlings. This came on the back of a box. So they're all hand cut. And you can actually get full boxes together still. They are 4,000 to 6,000 range typically. So not cheap. There's only 6 cards in the entire set. This one actually is, obviously it's ungraded, but there is a pinhole and it is creased. But I think for the most part, when you look at these, a good solid half probably are graded as A's. Many are 1s. And then 2s, 3s. I think I've seen 4s. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a 5 for any of the 6 cards. When you just look through PSA, SGC, populations. And for the most part, grading wise, you're looking at probably in the 30s, between the 2 big companies. Maybe some creep into the 40s. And obviously, I just showed you there's some raw in the wild, ungraded versions. But I think it's one of those sets that was like under the radar for so long. If you had that and it was worth $10, to me, you don't send that into grade. A $10 card to spend $15 to put it into a protective case didn't make a whole lot of sense, especially within your PC. I get it for dealers. I get it for flips. I get it for, I'm going to move this in the next 12 months. But for me, like, that's a 50-year card. The only time I'm going to put that into a protective case is when I see the need to say, okay, either I want to have it identified, I want to have it protected. There's some component to it too, where I say, like, the population is so low that I think it's worth kind of protecting and knowing that I have one of 39 of these or something. I don't know. That's just me. I'm sure I'm different than most, and that's okay. And then I did show these as well. So the other thing that's interesting with these, and actually I should show these side by side for that reason. When you see them side by side, you can actually tell they are different sizes. This one is actually a larger version. They're not always the same image. It's 1 and 1A. But the A's, I believe, are the smaller versions. So 1A a little bit tinier. I did land that in a 3, which is really high grade for one of these hand cuts. And again, I don't obsess about the grade so much. It's just when I see a 3, that means it's not going to be creased. It's not going to have pinholes. It's not going to have tape on the back. They're all blank back, so that part's not really exciting. But you do know that 3 is going to have a certain level of criteria that it's going to be a pretty clean version. So I don't mind it. So I had 1 and 1A. I had probably the more traditional, rougher cut, slightly creased, but that's a good looking one in the scope of things. That's card number 3. That actually is in a horizontal, like, landscape version. And then I will just say, I think of the examples I have, they're all pretty strong. So it's a hand cut 1. It's got a little bit of a dip in the cut at the top, but I mean, also keep in mind, you're not just cutting this out of, a newspaper. You're cutting this out of a box. So I know that would have given me fits, and I would have wanted to have like some kind of, packing knife or something crazy to try and cut it out. Because if you're going at this with scissors when you're 9, you're going to make that a pretty rough cut. But that's card number 4. So I had 1, 1A, 3, and 4. The back of the box has 6 things to it. What I was missing was 2 and 2A. I put kind of both as my goal because I'm down to 2 out of the 6 needed to complete. 2, to me, is by far the better looking card, and is probably I don't know if I'll say but it's one of the best looking Stan Musial cards in existence, especially if you can find it looking nice. I've seen a couple of them out there that look really brutal, and I think for a card where you want to have one copy of it, you kind of have to hope and wait until you can find one that looks exactly like you're hoping for. I'm not a conditioned person. If I found an amazing one, I don't care about the scorecard on it, the grade, the flip, whatever. That's not my thing, but I want to make sure it looks nice. I want to be able to look at it and not say like, I wish I had a nicer version of that. I've had a few cards like that where you get them and you're like, I'm so glad to have it. And you look at it, you're like, am I? Am I going to enjoy that? Or am I going to look at it and say, and again, when there's like 40 of them, not everyone in my state will have one. So, that's something I have to take into consideration as well. But this came up for auction. I mean, it's been like weeks since that question was out there. And obviously I have had that on the list longer than just that, VR video. But finding this in a 3, when you get into 3s and 4s, 3s and higher, I think the population is like 9 or 10. So it is very tough to find in a nicer condition. And I think the total graded population of this is still less than 40. So I'm sure there's ungradeds out there. There's backup boxes, but even if you were crazy rounding high, you might say there's 100 of these. There's just not going to be 500 of these cards in existence right now. So I think that as an example of card number 2, which to me is one of the nicest looking, and again, if you get to know me at all, you know the writing. I love Stanley Musial as his signature instead of just Stan. So I am really, really happy to add that to the collection, which now means my target for this has to be 2A, and then I'm done. I will have completed a set, which is not my style, but if you make the set 6 and all Stan Musials, I am far more likely to attempt to complete, especially for 1955 when there is no Topps, there is no Bowman. So if you want a 55 Musial, the world and scope of what you can find is much smaller. So that one went really, really strong. I think the market has either jumped or I don't think I was shill bid up. I think that literally is, there's 10 of them that are that nice or better. So I think the market has just kind of taken a little bit of a step. Those in lower grades can be pretty fair values, but I think when you start getting into a nicer version, and I think that probably is the nicest card in the set. So, with how often I've not seen it come up in the last year plus, I wasn't willing to let that go for $20. So, I bid a little more aggressively and wanted to make sure that one came back to my collection. So just want to share that update and kind of recap that set just a little bit again. And yeah, having fun with the Musial collection. On to 1955 Rawlings card 2A to complete the set. That's the new target. I will see y'all on the next video. Take care.